Hilchas Meiser Sheini v'neter Revai Perek Shlishi. Ha'oichel Meiser Sheini betuma leike. Shenamar v'libiarti mimenu betome. So we learn out a lav that there's an isser of eating. Biarti is also a lashon of eating, consuming betome. Ben sha'hameiser tome v'oichel tor. Ben sha'hameiser tor v'oichel tome. Any level of tumah, whether it's the tumah of the person or the tumah of the meiser, there's a isser of libiarti mimenu betome. Aber she'ichlene b'Yerushalayim kedem she'yipoda. It has to be that it came into Yerushalayim and you ate it in Yerushalayim. And kedem she'yipoda she'eino leika lachilasi betuma ele b'mkei machilasi. If you ate a tummy dikamaisa sheni in Yerushalayim and it wasn't nifta, so then you're chayiv. Avalum ochli betuma chutz Yerushalayim is makanes and makasmardis. You're not over on eating by Sheni Tomei if you eat it chutz Yerushalayim. Now, if you eat Meiser Sheini that came into Yerushalayim, outside Yerushalayim, there's another Issa, there's Issa v'lisucha lechel b'sharecha. The mashmois advarim is that you're not even on that Issa either, because when is there a din of v'lisucha lechel b'sharecha? When we're talking about Meiser Sheini Toher, which over there's a din b'sharecha tichlenu, so there's a Issa, a lav to eat Meiser Toher outside Yerushalayim. Masha'inkan over here, since in Yerushalayim you can't eat it either, so the lav of eating it outside Yerushalayim you don't have. Elamai, there's another lav, the lav of eating it betuma, and that lav of eating betuma is only in Yerushalayim, Masha'inkan outside Yerushalayim, there's no lav of eating it betuma. Halacha beis, vafilu lahadlikas haner achar shetid nitma osur, achi yipoda, not only aren't you allowed to eat it, nitma before it was nivda, but you're not allowed to even be madlik saner shenama libiarti mimenu betomis. So libiarti is kele sayachila and sayad lokas haner. Now, if it's toher, you're not allowed to be madlik saner. It's at a different thing, because since it's royal achila, so something that's royal achila, you're not allowed to be madlik saner. You're not allowed to be madlik saner with meiser sheni. Masha'inkein Binegea, something that was nitma, so l'chur it's not royal achila anymore. So the chiddush is that there's a isel hadlik zaner mitzad din of libiarti mimenu betomi. Halacha gimel. Kvar biarnu sha'maiser shenitma afilu b'Yerushalayim is poiden v'yeochel. So normally maiser sheini in Yerushalayim you're not allowed to be paid. While it's in Yerushalayim you're not allowed to be paid. You could only be paid the berichuk makim. However, if it became tomei, so if it's tomei and it's in Yerushalayim, you're allowed to be paid. And v'oichlun is domov betara beteras pedas meiser. You take the money, and with that money you buy food stuff, and that food you eat beteras pedas meiser. K'meshi is bar. Vafilu nitmu apedas kulan kshehin tevel. Even if all the payers became tummy when it's tevel, so that we can be my meiser sheni. So it's clear that you're going to be makriv, you're going to be mafresh meiser sheni, which is tummy. So the question is l'chura, maybe there's no need to be mafresh meiser sheni, because anyways it's tummy. So that's the din is no mafresh meiser sheni betuma, and then upeideyo. Then you pay the meiser sheni and you chal on the mois, and from the mois you buy food which is and you eat it. The kedushas meiser sheni, which is obviously Torah. Is nachamo. There's a isser to eat meiser sheni betuma, sayiv it's tumas haguf, and sayiv it's tumas meiser sheni. That isser is only in Yerushalayim. If you eat it outside Yerushalayim, you don't have the isser of eating meiser sheni betuma. That's din number one. There's another din, you're not allowed to even be madlik, a ner, with shem and tummy of meiser sheni. Shem and tummy of meiser sheni, you're allowed to be madlik a ner, that's all also nichlal, and liachalti mimenu betumi. And then there's a din that meiser sheni shenitma, even in Yerushalayim, you could be paid it, and then you eat the food that you buy with this money, b'kedushas meiser sheni, there should be betara. And even meiser sheni, even tevel, there was tummy, you mafresh meiser sheni, and it's tummy, dika meiser sheni, and then you paid it, and then you take the money, and with that you buy food, and you eat something b'kedushas meiser sheni, betara. Halacha dalet. Ha'orul kitami. Im ochel meiser sheni is also leikim and atera kiderech sheleika lachilas truma. Just like an oral that eats truma, which we learned gets malchus, is alderes an oral that eats meiser sheni also gets malchus. Why? Shat truma kruya kedesh, meiser sheni kruya kedesh. Harinemer bekedesh lashem. And memela we learn out that just like by truma, no, this truma is called kedesh, and over there the din is that an oral that eats truma gets malchus. So al derez we learn now that meiser sheni, which is also called kedesh, also gets malchus. Now, v'tomei shetovel, this is a new din, which is different than truma. By truma, the din is a tful yem is also asr lechel b'truma. That's the first Mishnah, Meimus Hakein and Shema B'Arvis, Mishor Shakenim Nechnasim lechel b'trumasam, because they have to wait until they're at tful yem. But if the tummy shetovel, if it's once the tummy was stable, he's a tful yem, is echel meiser sheni aval pishali head of shimshon. So even though a tummy is not allowed to eat meiser sheni, but a tful yem is mutter b'meiser sheni. Halacha hey, ha'oichel meiser sheni ba'anina shel teira. Person that's an oinen is loike shenamer le'achalti ba'oini mimenu. And again, v'hu she'ichlenu b'mkei machilasi b'Yerushalayim, in the place where he should be eating it, b'Yerushalayim, not as an oinen, and if he eats it as an oinen, he gets malchus. Avalim ochle b'chutz ba'aninus, esha ochle b'fnim baruz ba'aninus shel devreim. So then is makanes and makasmardis. Over there's no lav of eating it baninos. The lav of eating baninos is not chal, not if you eat it, but if you eat it bachutz baninos, and also there's no lav of baninos if you eat it baninos shel divrei. Now ezu einen, what's considered an einen? What is an einen? Zah misabel al echad min akrevim shu chayv l'sabale. So someone that's an oval. Now, which Avelis will be Yom HaMisa hu Einan Menatera. The day of the Misa, that's the day that he's an Einan Menatera. Or Balayla, the Laila following the Yom HaMisa, so then it's Einan Midivreim. Shnema v'achalti chatas hayem hayita be'eni Hashem. So we learn out Hayoim Ose v'Laila Mutter. V'achalti chatas hayem. So this din is the day that a person, a karev of his, one of the craven that he's misabel, dies. So that day he's an Einan Menatera, and if he eats Ma'aser Sheini, so he's loika. If he eats Ma'aser Sheini in Yerushalayim, he's loika. It's at the pasuk of the le'achalti be'eni mimenu. Mashenkin, the night after that, he's also an einan, but he's only an einan midrabanan. Now there is a nishtah hames yomim rabin v'achar kach nigbar. So kol eisna yomim she'achar yem hamisa ad yem hakfura hu einan midivreim. He's still called an einan until the yem hakfura. But ve'ein yem hakfura tefes leili. Even on the drabanadika level, the Yom HaKfura is not Tefes Leila, it's Nachamal. An Einan Menatera is someone, the Yom HaMisa. Midrabanan, it's the Laila after the Yom HaMisa, or Midrabanan, if it's the Yom HaMisa, there was no Kfura, it's until the Kfura, including the whole Yom HaKfura, but not including the Laila which follows the Yom HaKfura. That's an Einan Midivrei. And an Einan that eats Ma'aser Sheini is Leikim Menatera from the Pasig, V'le'achalti be'eni mimenu. V'lei Ma'aser Sheini, that's how Allah Zayin, V'lei Ma'aser Sheini Bilvad, you get Malchus for eating baninas, alakol hakotchim kulam. Im ochlan baninas shel teres leika. However, baninas shel devreim is makanes and makas mardas, because we learn it out there. Just like this is kodesh, and there's a iser lav of oinen, so al derech zeh b'nigeya all other kotchim, there's a iser lav of oinen. So again, the Rambam says that if a person eats Ma'aser Sheini als an oinen, he gets malchus from the pasuk le'achalti be'eni mimenu. Now that pasuk le'achalti be'eni mimenu is a pasuk which is not really telling us a lav of not to eat ba'oinen. It's a pasuk which is part of the vidui maisa, which the person says b'shna sabir when he says the vidui maisa, which we'll learn about. And over there he says the le'achalti be'eni mimenu. He says these lashon le'achalti be'eni mimenu, which obviously shows us that eating ba'oini would be something wrong. And that's why he's saying le'achalti be'eni mimenu. But on the other hand, l'chura, the Torah is not clearly telling us loy teichel ba'anin. The Torah is just telling us that the Shas Havidui, he says le'achalti be'eni mimenu, and because of that, the Ramban Taka argues with this Rambam, and the Ramban holds that there's no lav of eating Ma'aser Sheini or kotchim ba'aninus. There's no lav, specific lav on it. It's just it's aser, because we know from le'achalti be'eni mimenu. But on the other end, there's no lav for it, and memela there's no chi of malchus. What about benigeh the chi of tumas? So the Ma'aser is the Rambam. When the Rambam starts this perek, he says that ha'echel Ma'aser Sheini betuma leikesh nema v'lebiarti mimenu betome. So obviously the Rambam l'shitase that says le'achalti be'eni mimenu is a iser lav. So al der is a lebiarti mimenu betome is also iser lav. Mashenkan, according to the Ramban, le'achalti be'eni mimenu is not a iser lav. So lebiarti mimenu betome is also not a iser lav. So where's the lav? But the Ramban has made it that eating Ma'aser Sheini betuma, you get a lot. There is a chi of malchus, because there's another pasuk. The Gemara learns out from leisucha lechel b'sherecha. The Gemara Yevamos learns out from leisucha lechel b'sherecha that lav also goes on eating kotchim ba'aninus or Ma'aser Sheini ba'aninus. I'm sorry, not ba'aninus, but negeh tuma. So in other words, the Rambam brings this pasuk because l'shitase Mashenkim the Ramban would agree to the din, but not from this pasuk. It would be from another pasuk. Halacha ches. Ein noisnen peiris ma'aser sheni lam'aretz. And also v'lei peiris hanilkachis b'mois ma'aser, which also has a din of ma'aser sheni. And also v'lei mois ma'aser, which that mois he could go ahead and buy money and buy food. Why? Mipnei shu b'cheskas tumah, so the amoritz is b'cheskas tumah. So basically, you're giving him peiris, so he's going to be matami the peiris, or he's going to eat it b'tumah. However, mutter lechel ma'aser sheni shel d'mai ba'aninus. Ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, although he said you're not allowed to eat ma'aser sheni ba'aninus, but ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, first of all, there's a din you're allowed to eat it ba'aninus, a special kula by ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, and also v'litnei la'amoritz, you're allowed to take ma'aser sheni shel d'mai and give it to an amoritz. However, when you get lit, this v'hu is going on litnei la'amoritz. V'hu sheyechel kenegda. Now the pashta taitz sheyechel kenegda means you should eat other foods b'kedushas ma'aser sheni, the food that you're giving to the amoritz. But Rambam brings over here that the pshat is that yechel kenegda, he brings from the Rambam and Pirush HaMishnayos, that it means he should be mechal, the money, the food that he's giving to this Amhoretz, the food of Demai that he's giving to the Amhoretz, he should be mechal on other foods or other monies, and Memela he'll be echel kenegde. So the question is, if that's the case, what's the chiddush? If he's being mechal, what's the chiddush? So he says the chiddush is that even though he gave it to the Amoritz, and he gave it to the Amoritz before he was mechal, but nevertheless he could rely that he'll end up being mechal before the Amoritz uses it. Now it's not. I mean, that's what he says pshat based on Pirush Mishnayos La Rambam. He brings from other places that's the pshat. In other words, when you read V'hu sheyechel kenegda, the Rambam is not saying clearly that you're being mechalel what you gave to the Amoritz, and that what you're being mechalel is litnei lenegda. But that's how the Rambam Aruch is saying pshat in this Rambam. I'll call upon him. Nochamo. So you're allowed to give ma'aser sheni, you're allowed to eat ma'aser sheni shel d'mai ba'aninus. That's number one. And over there's no pigeon over there. And then v'litnei l'Amoritz, you're allowed to take this ma'aser sheni shel d'mai and give it to the Amoritz. And then, as we're saying pshat, v'hu sheyechel kenegde, and then he should go and be mechal that ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, which he gave to the Amoritz, and he'll be mechal it on other foods or monies, and he'll be yechel kenegde. It's a chiddush. Then the Ram continues, ein mafkiden ma'aser sheni eitzel chaver. You're not allowed to even give a pikodin of a ma'aser sheni eitzel chaver. Why? Because v'chsha Hashem yomus, v'nimtzed, ma'aser will be tachas yad b'nei, which is amoritz. P'sachidish, you're not allowed to give a pikodin to a chaver, because he might die, and it'll be a pikodin b'yad amoritz. Avu mafkiden ma'aser sheni shel d'mai eitzel amoritz. Ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, you're allowed to be mafkid by an amoritz. We said before, you're allowed to even give ma'aser sheni shel d'mai to amoritz. But before we said to give it to amoritz, it has to be yechel kenegde. Mashenkin over here, you're not being yechel kenegde, you're just being mafkid the ma'aser sheni shel d'mai eitzel amoritz, and you don't have to be yechel kenegde. It's p'sachidush. So nachamol. So ma'aser sheni shel d'mai has a kula. The kula is, first of all, you can eat it ba'ninus. Secondly, you can give it to an amoritz if yechel kenegde. Then there's a general din, a mafkid ma'aser sheni, even by a chaver. Even though the din is you're allowed to be mafkid l'mashal truma by a chaver. So truma, we're not. No, truma, you're allowed to be mafkid, but over here there's an eitzah. Before you mafkid, that's what it brings from there sameach. That over here there's an eitzah. Ma'aser sheni there's an eitzah to be paid. So in Mela truma there's no eitzah, so you're allowed to be mafkid eitzah lachaver, and you're not worried that maybe he's going to die and it's going to come to his son and it'll be betruma. Mashenkin ma'aser sheni, since there's an eitzah, the eitzah is to be paid. So therefore you're not allowed to be mafkid even eitzah chaver, because he might die. It's like Gzeira, sounds like Gzeira. He might die and it'll end up being by his son, the Amoritz. But you're allowed to be mafkid, ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, eitzel Amoritz. Halacha tes. Ma'aser sheni, osur la'abed afilu mi'ute b'drachim. When you're traveling, you're not allowed to throw out even a little bit of it. Ela meilichi kolshu, as it is. You have to bring all of the ma'aser sheni, you bring it to Yerushalayim. Oy, may live dam with Yerushalayim. The other eight says to bring the value to Yerushalayim in order to be machal, to be paid it, and to bring the value in Yerushalayim, but you can't just throw it out. However, muter la'abed miut ma'aser sheni shel d'mai b'drachim. So regular ma'aser sheni you're not allowed to be ma'abed b'drachim. Ma'ashenki ma'aser sheni shel d'mai, another kula in d'mai that you're allowed to be ma'abed miut ma'aser sheni shel d'mai b'drachim. The kamu miyut, what would be considered a miyut? Pachas mikigregris, less than the size of a gregris, of a fig. Bein be'eichel sholem, whether it's a complete piece of food, bein paris, or a broken piece of food. Avol kegregris, if it's already the size of a gregris, and even though it's demai, ein ma'abnei, so you're not allowed to be ma'abed. A mafrish, ma'aseh sheini shel demai, pachas mikigregris, another kula. If a person's mafrish, ma'aseh sheini shel demai, and it's mlechatchila dafrosh is pachas mikigregris, is a reza neisnel amoritz, you're allowed to give it to the amoritz. And v'eichel connect, then you'll be eichel connected. And l'chura, this v'eichel connect, will be the same type like we said before v'eichel connected, that you'll be paid it. That's the type of v'eichel connected. Avalei afrishenu l'chatchila l'abdei. And knows to go ahead and to mafresh it with the intention of being ma'abed, that you shouldn't do. She'em mafrishen l'abed. You're not mafresh something with the intent of being ma'abed. So even though l'peil, if you have ma'aser sheini shel demai, and it's less than a gregus, you're allowed to be ma'abed it. But lechatchila, to go ahead and be mafresh it, amanas la'abdi, that you're not allowed to. Halacha Yud. Ma'aser sheini nitnu la'achila u'shtiya. Shnema v'achalta l'fnei Hashem b'likecha, and also v'sicha, because v'sicha has a din of shtiya. When you smear yourself, it has a din as if you're drinking. V'osir le'itziye b'sh'ar tzrochav, k'gein likach b'kelim u'b'godim v'avadim, shnema li'sanasati mimenu lemes, k'meimar that's pshat le'is. I didn't do something which doesn't really add to my life. That's right. I only did something which added to my life, which is food and drink, or even sicha is something which is going into my life. So you did a mitzvah, but nevertheless, so again, he teaches in the Ramah that Kenegel B'Teiras Maisa means he takes other monies or other foods, and he says that money that he spent on these things which weren't food, that money should be mechul. That money which he spent should be mechulul on this food which he's now buying. That's pshat oichel Kenegel B'Teiras Maisa. Halacha Yudalef. Meiser is oichel davar shedarke lehiyachel, and v'shei davar shedarke lishtes. And v'soch davar shedarke losoch. He's allowed to do with those things the natural, normal thing which is done with it. Things that are normally eaten, he eats. Things that are normally drunk, he drinks. Something normally smeared, he smears. And v'liyosoch yayin v'chemetz, because that's not normal to be soch. Aval sochu is hashemen, but he could take shemen, even though he could use the shemen for food, but he could use it for sicha. And v'liyischet is ha-peiris lehetzim me'hamashken, to take peiris and make from the peiris mashken, that's not normal, because the mashken is not really considered part of the food. It's considered zeya ba'alma, so it's like ruining the peiris. Chutz mizesim v'anovim bilvad, because that's normal to take zesim v'anovim to make from it oil and wine. Ve'ein mefatmen es hashemen, to take shemen and to put psamim in it, which makes it inedible. So even though you're allowed to take shemen which is edible, and use it to smear yourself, but on the other hand, you're not allowed to make shemen, which is edible, should become inedible. Aval mefatmen es hayayin, to add spices to the wine, that doesn't take it away from the fact that it's wine, and maybe it still remains edible, that's not a problem. Once the food went off, it was already ipsho or nisrach, so it went off already, it's not good, it's spoiled, so you're allowed to eat it. And once it's not edible, it's poka kedushim imana, the kedusha of ma'aser sheini went off. Memele, there's no special din of eating. You don't have to make sure to eat it. Halacha yud beis kel shemuter lezorim le'echli betruma. Those parts of the fruit that your azor is allowed to eat betruma. We learned about the stems that are different parts, different pits. Is kach muter ma'aser sheini le'echli b'teiras chulin. You don't have to eat it b'teiras ma'aser sheini. You could eat it b'teiras chulin, because just like it doesn't have a din of truma, the peiros of truma, that part of the peiros is not called truma. So that part of the peiros is not called ma'aser sheini. Now shmorim shel ma'aser sheini shenosen aleim mayim. You took the dregs of ma'aser sheini, you put water over it, and we're talking about over here. It's not like there's a lot of wine coming out, because there's a din. If a lot of wine comes out, so the mamash has a din of wine. Over here, the pshat is it just added some color, a little taste. Shmorim shel ma'aser sheini shenosen aleim mayim is rishain, the first set of water that you put over these shmarim, and you get something out of these shmarim, is osur kemaisa, as a din of osur kemaisa. But v'shel sheini, masha'inkin, the second set that you take out of, that you pour over these shmarim, so that's mutter kechulim, that's mutter kechulim. V'shel d'mai is afilu rishon mutter. It's again, we're not talking about over here in a case where we had cases where you poured water and you end up having a third more. In other words, like a quarter of the mixture now is what was added from these dregs. That's obviously that's the din of wine. Mashengan over here is talking about something came, some flavor came into the wine, some coloring came into the water. So Mela, the first waters that you put over these shmarim has a psadin by Meiser Sheini, so it has a din of Meiser Sheini. Mashengan the second set doesn't have, and by Dmai even the first doesn't. Halacha Yud Gimel. Yayin shel Meiser shenofel letechi dvash v'atavla. In other words, you have wine of Meiser Sheini, and in this wine fell in either honey or tavlin. And v'yishbichu lepil, now this wine is better. It's worth more. It's worth more. So the din is hashvach lefi cheshbon. So you have to make a cheshbon. How much is it worth more? Now, why is it worth more? In other words, it's obviously the mixture between the wine and what was added to the wine. So this the fact that it went up in price. So how much? No, the increase in price is divided between the Meiser Sheini and the item that fell into the Meiser Sheini, and then when you have to be paid to the Meiser Sheini, you have to be paid to the Meiser Sheini according to this increase, according to the ratio of what the Meiser Sheini is entitled to. As we'll soon say. The same case, dogim shenizbashlim kaplutis. You have kaplutis, which are certain vegetables, which were cooked together with fish. Shel Meiser and v'hishbicho. Now the dogim are worth more. So obviously the dogim is not Meiser Sheini, but the kaplutis were Meiser Sheini. So now you have to make a cheshbon. Haf shvach lefi cheshbon. The shvach will be lefi cheshbon. The Rambam is going to take choice. The Rambam is going to take choice in Halacha Tezvav. Now, that's talking about when we have two foods that were mixed. In other words, the first case was mamish, the dvash or the tavlin fell into the yayin. So now you have a mixture of yayin, which is yayin and dvash and tavlin. Or in the second case, you had dogim, and that dogim were mixed with the kaplutis, and the kaplutis went into the dogim. So memela again, we have a mixture of something which is a greater amount than we had before, and it's worth more, and it added, and now it increased in value. So therefore, you have to figure out how much the Meiser Sheini increased in value. Now, what about Isa shel Meiser Sheini she'ofa v'hishbicha? You took wood, and you baked an Isa of Meiser Sheini. So the chura, when it was a dough, it was only worth a certain amount. Now that it's bread, it's worth more. So the chura, let's make a cheshbon that it's not all Meiser Sheini money, because the wood, which wasn't Meiser Sheini, enhanced the price of the dough, and memela it caused it to be worth more. So on that we say not like that. Isa shel Meiser Sheini she'ofa v'hishbicha. So hashvach l'sheni, whatever increased in value from what it was a dough and now it's being a piece of bread, all belongs to the Meiser Sheini. Zaklal. It has to be, in order to have to share, it has to be shvach, kol sheshvachi nikar. If the shvach of whatever was added to the Meiser Sheini is nikar, and also im hoiser b'mida, and it also added in the size, so then hashvach lefi cheshbon, then the shvach is only lefi cheshbon. However, v'im leheser amida, if it didn't add in size, in other words, it didn't add in size, so then hashvach l'sheni bilvad. Then the shvach is only going to belong to the sheni. So in other words, if you have something that was mishbiach, mushal in the case of the bread, so the bread you have the dough and now you have bread. So it's not increased in size. The dough now became bread because it baked. So even though it became bread through the wood, but nevertheless, the entire bread, even though it became bread through the wood, the entire bread is considered Meiser Sheini, and therefore now we look at it as the value of Meiser Sheini. You don't start dividing how much is the value of the bread and how much is the value of the wood in the bread. Masha'inkin, in the case where you had the shemen that fell into the wine, so the shvach is nicker, and as you see, it's a different taste, and also it also created a larger size, because now there's more, there's the dvash plus the wine. So over here you have to divide how much is Meiser Sheini and how much is not Meiser Sheini. The chol she'ein shvachi nicker, if the shvach is not nicker, is afilu hoiser amida, even if it added in size. So hasheni hashvach l'sheni bilvad. If something didn't really, the shvach is not nicker. I'm not really sure the case of this case. In other words, you have something which created a larger size, and the shvach is not nicker. You can't see really that the other thing is what caused the larger size. It became like bottle. I'm not 100% sure what the tzir is. Kol she'ein shvachim nikar, afilo heiser amida, is a shvach l'sheni bolvad. Halacha tezvav. Meiser sheni, afal pi shenitn l'sicha. You could use meiser sheni to smear yourself. That's considered also a usage of meiser sheni similar to drinking. You can't put it, it's like on a certain wart on the bottom of your foot, which is like using, so to speak, for a medicinal purpose like a salve for a medicine. Is on top of a certain boil. Again, you're using it as a medicine. You can't make it into a kameya. In other words, to take a little bit of oil and put it in a pouch and make it as a kameya. That's a medicine. You're allowed to use it to eat, to drink, or to smear yourself as a pleasure of smearing yourself. But not a smearing yourself, which is an inyan of medicine. Halacha Yud Zayin, Meiser Sheini Momin Goveyahu, Shnema Lahashemu. Lefichach Einei Nikne B'matona. In other words, if you transfer ownership of Meiser Sheini, it doesn't transfer ownership. Now, l'may nafkamina. So one of the nafkaminas is that if a person is the bailam, wants to be paid the Meiser Sheini, so the bailam have to be Meiser V'chaimish. Now what happens if you give away the Meiser Sheini as a matana? The question, who's the bailam? Is the original person the bailam, or the new bailam are the bailam? So we're saying, Eina Nikne Matana, so the original person is still the bailam, and if the second person, he's allowed to use this money, as long as the first bailam give him rishus to use it, he's allowed to use it. But when he's using it, he has to realize he's using the other person's. Memela, he's not the bailam. Memela, he doesn't have to add a chaimish. That would be a simple in. Elim kain nosum lehatevel. Less, the only way to give matana would be if he gave him originally the tevel. But hamakabel is mafresh hamaisa. Tevel you can give away. So now the makabel of the tevel is the one that was mafresh hamaisa. So it's his maisa. Now he can't give it away to the original owner. And also, you can't be mekadosh isha with meiser sheni because it's not yours. You cannot sell it. You're not allowed to sell it. There are multi-choice. You don't take it as a mashkin. If someone owes you money, you don't take it as meiser sheni. And also, you can't switch the meiser sheni for other meiser sheni. And also, you can't place it as a, so you want to pawn it and take for it alone, you're not allowed to be Marin Nesi. Mashkin Nesi is when they take from you the Mashkin because you owe them money. And Marin Nesi is when you give it in order to get a loan. Ketzat. Halacha Yudchas. Ketzat Eima Mashkin Nesi. Li'yikonis lebeisi v'yimashkinenu Meiser Sheni Shalei. If someone owes you money and that person has Meiser Sheni, you can't take away his Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni is not his, it's Mam and Goveya. Now, Avaru Mishkane, if you did take away his Meiser Sheni, you have to give it back. Now, Kate said, what does it mean, Eimar Hinese? The person, the borrower, shouldn't say, here's this Meiser Sheni, lend me money on this Meiser Sheni. Kate said, in other words, I'll exchange my yayin for your shemen, because that's also like selling and buying. Here's yayin, I have no oil. So in other words, here's wine. And so Mameli, he's telling him, listen, I don't have any oil. If you want to give me more oil, I'd appreciate it. But he didn't make up it as a deal. There wasn't a clear exchange. You're allowed to give Meiser Sheni away. It doesn't become his, but you're not allowed to make an exchange, an official exchange, you're not allowed to. Halacha Yutes. Meiser Sheni ein shoiklin kenegde afilu din risov. In other words, to go ahead and use it as a weight. In other words, you happen to know the weight of this Meiser Sheni, and now you want to see if the Din Rizov, what's the weight of the Din Rizov. So you're using the Meiser Sheni as a means of measuring the weight of the Din Rizov. So Din Rizov is normally to use something as a weight as a bizoy. But l'chur, if you're using it for Din Rizov, it sounds like a davar choshev. So we say no, you can't use it as a mishkol, even for Din Rizov. If you're interested in using the other coin or even the Din Rizov to use it as Mechal Meiser Sheni Acher, so l'chur, you're using it l'tzeirach Meiser Sheni is also not. Why? Because Gzeira, now here the Lashon Shema le'yechav mimenu mishkoli. But the Girsa is, the Lechamishna writes in Chanukah, Shema yechav mimenu mishkolis, which means you're going to make it into weights. In other words, the concern is that you're going to make this Meiser Sheni into weights, into official weights, and what's so wrong if the Meiser Sheni is going to be official weights? Because we're concerned because Peiris is something which gets ruined, so therefore the Peiris will be Chesedim, and V'shekel b'mois l'chal alei Meiser Acher, he's going to use it to be Mechal other Meiser for it, and Nimtza Meiser Meiser l'chul, the Pachas Midamav. So it's like a whole cheshbon. Whereas Ba'amas, there's nothing wrong if you'd have a weight of Ma'aser Sheini, and the purpose of the weight of the Ma'aser Sheini is in order to weigh other monies, in order to be Mechal Ma'aser Sheini. So it's like using Ma'aser Sheini for Ma'aser Sheini. That's not really a bizoin. But the problem is, if you're going to designate this food stuff as a weight for Ma'aser Sheini, so this food stuff, you're going to last, it's going to hang around a long time and may get ruined, and then it'll weigh less, and then when you're going to weigh other stuff connected this, you're really getting a coin which less weight, and then you're going to use that coin for Ma'aser Sheini, so it's going to come out that Ma'aser Sheini is ending up losing. Now, l'chura, that din would be by any fruits that you're going to make as a designated weight. So l'chura, so we're concerned that that fruit will eventually rot, part of it, and then it'll weigh less, and then whatever you're going to weigh against it won't be worth anything. So he brings the Ram Mara brings to Mekevas HaMishnah that the pshat is that other fruit you're not going to really hang around so long and keep it as a weight because you want to eat it. Mashenka Ma'aser Sheini, you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. So Mele, you may leave it around for a long time, and Mele it'll be a weight, and then it'll get ruined. And so this chash is more by Ma'aser Sheini because no one's in a rush to eat it because you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. Yeah. Halacha Chof. Achim shachol ku Ma'aser Sheini. So the yashin Ma'aser Sheini from their father is also ein shekel zeh keneged zeh because you're using it for a weight. You're using it as a weight to weigh against each other. V'chein mois Ma'aser Sheini is ein shekel keneged. If you have mois Ma'aser Sheini, you should also not use them as a weight. In other words, it's not a covet for the Ma'aser Sheini to use them as a weight. Ve'in moicher noisa, you're not allowed to sell mois Ma'aser Sheini. Ve'in machlifen v'lei marhinan. So this same din that we learned before, b'negea peiris Ma'aser Sheini, also applies to mois Ma'aser Sheini. And you give it to someone that person is not going to use it. He's going to give you back this mois, but this is like you're going to help him to show people that he has a lot of money. So Mamela, he's going to have this money to show that he has a lot of money. So again, you're not allowed to use it for any of these type of use. You shouldn't lend it to someone. That person again wants to show that he has a lot of money for whatever reason. That person has such an interest. So again, he's going to give you back the original Ma'aser Sheini, the mois Ma'aser Sheini. You had paid this Ma'aser Sheini. You were mechaler on mois. Now you're taking this mois and you're giving it to someone to use. He's not going to actually spend the money. He's just going to use it to show that he has money. He's not allowed to. V'im hilva shaliyal chaluda. But if this purpose of lending the money was in order that it shouldn't become rusty, because like this the person will handle the money, and Memela won't become rusty, is mutter. So again, he's giving you back the original money. But the Vaili is handling the money, and that's permissible. B'kitzur, you're not allowed to use Ma'aser Sheini for any types of use. They ain't paid in Me'emes. You can't go ahead and use Ma'aser Sheini to pay up a loan. Because again, it's not yours. It's not your money. It's money that belongs to the Eibishter, and the Eibishter wants you to go ahead and take it to Yerushalayim and eat it there. Ein oisen mehem shushvinus. Shushvinus means when people get married. In Chassidus we learn people get married. So one person helps out the other person. That's called shushvinas. He gives him a certain help. He gives him money in order to help him make the chasana. But it's understood that it's like a loan. So it's like a loan, and that person is going to help him when he will be in the same situation. So it's like using it as giving it as a loan. Is ein esimem shushvinas. They mishalmem hem agmulim. In other words, someone did you a favor, and you want to pay him back a favor, even though it's not mamish a chiyuv. But on the other end, the person did you a favor, and you want to pay him back a favor, so you're not allowed to use Ma'aser Sheini for that. In other words, if you were obligated to give certain tzedakahs, and you want to use Ma'aser Sheini to give that tzedakah, you're not allowed to. Things that you want to do a good deed to someone, a gmilas chasadim, that you're allowed to do. When you give someone Ma'aser Sheini the money in order to help him out, it's not an eifan of obligation of mishal mehem sagmulim. It's just a of gemilas chesed. You're allowed to do it, but on the other end, the person has to be notified that it's Ma'aser Sheini money. Halacha chav beis liyemer adam lechaveri halas apedus eilu l'Yerushalayim and v'tum behel chelkecha. As a payment for what you're doing, you'll get a chelik from it. Shezeh kenetel schar Ma'aser Sheini. In other words, I'm hiring you to bring the Ma'aser Sheini up to Yerushalayim, and I'm paying your wages for this delivery for Ma'aser Sheini. Kenetel schar Ma'aser Sheini alavos Yerushalayim, which is not allowed to. Avol emelei halem shenoichlim v'shenishtim Yerushalayim. He didn't make it clear that it's wages. He says, you bring it to Yerushalayim and we'll eat together. So he didn't really say that you bring it and I'll give you your schar. Bring it and we'll eat together. So obviously he'll be nana from it. Halacha chav gimel, Eimer Adam lechaveri b'Yerushalayim, losuch oisei b'shem and ma'aser sheni. He asks that person to smear him with shem and ma'aser sheni. So basically he's not paying him for it with ma'aser sheni. But Lepel, he's benefiting because while he's smearing him with Shem and Ma'aser Sheini, he's also becoming, his hands is getting also smeared with Shem and Ma'aser Sheini. Is Aval Pishin is Seichi Yodi, nevertheless, ve'ein zeh b'schar sichasi. That's not considered like the schar of a sicha. It's not considered like kischar sichasi, magia. No, it's not considered you're paying him. You didn't make up to pay for him. Just like in the case before, we said, we'll eat together. So obviously, we'll eat together. It'll be a good thing. So Alder is over here. And you'll smear me with your oil, so your hand will be smeared. But I never made up that that's, so to speak, a payment for your smearing. Halacha chav dalet, kvar biyarnu shamaysen mamen govehu. Lefichach anu emrim, lefichach anu emrim, shahagoynev ma'aser sheni, eine mishalem tashlumi kefu. And Alder is a hagoyzle, eine mishalem chemish. The din is someone that steals money, and then he's nishba, la sheker, that he doesn't owe the money, and then he's made that he was nishba la sheker, so he has to pay back the keren v'chemesh v'asham. So here he's saying that a geisel, ma'aser sheni, doesn't have to pay back a chemesh. Halacha chav hei, hamagdish ma'aser sheni shalei lebedek habayis. He has ma'aser sheni, which is not really mamash shalei, but it's mama goveya, but lepel, he has the rights to eat it. So hamagdish ma'aser sheni shalei lebedek habayis is areze poida isei misha pideu. So first he has to give Hegdish, because now Hegdish has the right to this Ma'aser Sheni. He has a right to this Ma'aser Sheni. Is areza poideis mishabideu almanas litin lehegdish shalei. He has to give Hegdish whatever Hegdish deserves, which Hegdish has the right to decide who's going to eat this Ma'aser Sheni. He knows it was his Ma'aser Sheni, and now he gave it to Hegdish. Basically, he gave Hegdish the rights to decide who's going to eat this Ma'aser Sheni. Before it was his rights, and now it's Hegdish's rights. So he has to give Hegdish its money, even though it's going to remain Ma'aser Sheni. Well, the Ma'aser Sheni is shalei. If he wants to be paid to the Ma'aser Sheni as well, and eat the actual Ma'aser Sheni chutz shalayim, so then he has to be paid to the Ma'aser Sheni is shalei. By being paid from Hegdish, it still remains Ma'aser Sheni. If he wants to make it Ruis Ma'aser Sheni, he has to give a Ma'aser Sheni as shalei.